Hello friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. We start our video with a story that happened to our OP during Thanksgiving. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I had to leave my family for this. Well, so did we. Some background. I've been working at this particular big chain retail store for about a year and a half at this point. I've also managed to work in every section of the store, save for some very high-up managerial positions. Yet they decide to torture me with the guest service Black Thanksgiving shift every year, meaning this year and last. For this position, all you get is screaming customers for the first 5 or 6 hours, then it's dead from about 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. to the point where you want to rip your face off. This story happened last year on Black Thanksgiving. In case you couldn't tell, we opened on Thanksgiving Day at 6 p.m. last year and continued to do so this year. Because of this, most of the people I work with have to shove food down their throats and leave their Thanksgiving celebrations early to come and deal with irritable customers trying to save a few dollars and throwing a fit if they don't get what they want. Much fun. So last Black Thursday, we had a line forming of about 200 people at 3:30 p.m., and TV tickets were handed out in line long before we opened. First come, first serve. So you had to be in line long before we opened, and people were willing to come in insanely early to get what they wanted. When I came in at 6, the line was huge, with about 1,000 people waiting to come in and shop. So when the floodgates opened at 6 p.m., it was the most amusing thing to watch people trip over each other and book it to the electronics section. When most people saw the TVs right next to guest service roped off, they realized that the TVs were already accounted for. And although they were upset, they understood that they'd been too late. There were a lot of other cool things to get, so it's not like they came for nothing. About 3 hours later, the initial rush of the night settled down and things were relatively calm up front, although electronics was still insane, not surprisingly. At this point, people had stopped yelling at us for silly things that we couldn't control, so most of our work consisted of sorting things and cleaning up the front. At about 9 p.m., this man comes in by himself and heads back towards electronics, which is no big deal because there are always stragglers and you never know what might be left. Well, apparently, this guy didn't understand how Black Thanksgiving works, because about 15 minutes later, he comes up fuming to guest service and starts yelling. M will be yours truly, SC will be the slacking customer. Note, it's been a year, so this isn't exact dialogue, but it's very close to it. SC. Where are your TVs? I want a TV right now. M. Sir, I apologize, but the TVs were a high-demand item and people had already purchased all of them. No, I want a TV right now. This is unacceptable. I had to come all the way and leave my family and I want a TV. At this point, no amount of reason would settle him down, so I called over the front-end manager to try and deal with him. She'll be AM for Awesome Manager. AM. Hey, RKJ, what's the problem over here? Me. Well, this SC. So I came in for a TV, and you guys don't have any. And how dare you do this to me? I had to leave my family for this and come all the way here, and I demand a TV right now. How dare you make me leave my family for nothing? You will not yell at me or my team member like that. At least you made the decision to leave your family. Every single person here had to leave their families in the middle of dinner to come here and deal with grown children like you throwing temper tantrums because they showed up 3 hours late to something when people have been lining up since 10 a.m. You can go home and cry to your family because at least you get the option to do that. But you will not yell at me or RKJ over your poor planning and immature attitude. Slacking customer just glared at the two of us and said, You two should be fired. I've never seen such terrible guest service in my entire life, and stormed out the door. Needless to say, she's my favorite manager I've ever had, and I've told this story many times this Black Friday week and will continue to do so for the next few years to come, even after I leave retail. And our second story. Beggar tries to lowball me over fencing. I live in rural Ohio, near Pennsylvania and West Virginia, so this whole story is going to sound completely redneck and backwoodsy. And yes, this was a petty dispute over chain link fencing that I now realize I probably should have just given in on. Whoopsie. To start, I adopted a German Shepherd / Siberian Husky mix from the pound a few years back, and she's my baby. She's spoiled rotten and has everything a dog can ask for. Well, when I first got her, we bought an outdoor kennel for her to potty in so she wasn't confined to a leash and had some freedom in the yard. The chain link was kind of weak for a large dog like her, so I dropped $160 on 2 rolls of new chain link. I only used one and kept the other for spare because I heard huskies like to chew through everything, including fencing, which is why she's since been upgraded to a 40-foot heavy-duty dog cable. And naturally, I tried to sell the old because it was still good, thinking maybe somebody would use it for their small dog or a different yard project. I get a message from Jerk on a selling app, and he seemed nice. I told him I still had the fencing and he could swing by to pick it up, and reminded him that I only wanted $40 for it. An hour later, he's in my driveway wandering around my yard looking for this fence. I go out and introduce myself, heading to the garage to pull the fencing out for him. He follows uncomfortably close behind me, looking at all the stuff I had in the garage, and finally resting his eyes on my brand new roll of $80 heavy-duty fence, which was in a back corner and completely separate from the stuff I was selling. I kindly told him that roll wasn't for sale and I was only needing the smaller ones, to which he replied, "But this isn't good enough. I need that kind." Me: "Sir, if you'd like to buy that, it's brand new and I'd need $80 just for that alone, plus the $40 for the older link." Jerk: "But you said $40, so you're getting $40 and I'm taking it all for that." Me: "No, it's not for sale. This is what I'm selling, so this is all you can take." Jerk: "Everything's for sale at the right price." Me: "That price isn't $40. At this point, he goes to grab it, and I step in front of him, telling him that's $80 for this roll or no deal. He leaves in a huff, texting me about an hour later to tell me he bought food for his livestock at the local feed mill and he only had $12 left, but he'd still be willing to buy all my chain link from me with it. No thanks, I'll sell to someone willing to pay full price and not try to severely lowball me. It later went to a very nice woman who wanted to fence part of her backyard for her terrier. Of course you were right to stand your ground. And our last story. Have fun with your fine neighbor. This isn't my story directly, but I was the roommate of the person who did this. Back when I was in my early 20s, I was rooming with my friend whose uncle was allowing us to live in his vacation home that he rarely used anymore. I didn't have to pay rent, but had to buy things like toilet paper and paper towels and the like, which was nice. While I never knew the owners personally, I heard they were in their early 30s and the male in their relationship was an abusive jerk. He regularly drove a giant Chevy truck with some of the biggest tires I've ever seen. I don't know the exact price, but it seemed like they were about a few $100s a piece, maybe $250 per. Now, I can't remember what exactly happened, but I know about a week after those people moved in, my friend, who we'll call MF, complained to the new neighbor, who we'll call AD, about something rather small. This enraged AD, and he started yelling at MF, and things soon got pretty heated, and they left things off, basically saying F you to each other. A few days after, this one morning, while retrieving the empty garbage bins, I noticed 2 rather large ruts in our front yard. I thought nothing of it, other than some drunken idiot went off the road, probably taking the turn too early. After all, we were on the corner of the street. I told MF, and we got some shovels, patted down the soil flat, and put some grass seed over it. We thought that was it, but wouldn't you know it, it happened again about a week later. This time, MF thought it wasn't an accident and thought AD was doing it to be a jerk. He drove over to AD's house, and wouldn't you know it, his oversized illegal tires were covered in dirt, so MF goes up to his front door and rings the doorbell. AD answers, and MF politely says something along the lines of, "Listen, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'm sorry, but can you please not rut my yard anymore?" To which AD says, "Yeah, whatever, man," and slams the door in his face. Not knowing what else he could do, he just told me if he does it again, we'll call the cops. And as you can probably guess, AD does it again. We call the cops, but they say they can't prove it was him, suggested we get some cameras so if it happens again, we can have proof, and left. So we go to the nearest hardware store and pick up some cameras. Now, being rather poor at the time, we couldn't really get high-end quality cameras, but they were cameras nonetheless. There were 8 of them, and in half a day we got them installed and set up, all of them watching the street. About 2 or 3 days later, 2 ruts appear. We check the cameras, and sure enough, it was AD's truck. We call the cops, and they take a look at the feed, but apparently the quality of the footage was too low, and we didn't see the driver or the plates. When in reality, I'm pretty sure the cops were just lazy and didn't want to deal with the paperwork. Fed up and rather PO'd but not discouraged, MF wanted revenge. And since he couldn't do it legally, he had to take action himself. Originally, he thought about putting those spike things cops use to stop car chases in our yard, but he was scared that it was illegal, which I'm pretty sure it is. Instead, he didn't cut the grass for a few weeks, letting it get super long. It was rutted a few times in this time span, but now he was ready to take action. Him being a fairly crafty person, he put together some homemade sprinklers. He made it so when the top portion that dispensed the water had pressure put on it, it would give, revealing a sharp metal spike, but until then wouldn't have any sharp parts exposed to avoid any possible legal repercussions. They looked like crap and were basically a couple of pieces of metal spot welded together. I don't even think they worked. Hidden by the grass, he put them out and the trap was set. He missed them the first time, but the second time he hit them, flattening 2 of his tires. Finally, after having our yard rutted probably 10 times, we finally got our revenge. He came to our door pissed and probably ready to knock out MF. He was demanding we pay for his tires. We called the cops and they show up and were practically laughing in his face that he wanted us to pay. Instead, he got slapped with a fine for destruction of private property, and on top of that, they charged him another fine because his tires were offset too far and the mud flaps weren't covering them enough or something like that. It didn't stop him from being a jerk, but at least our yard was never rutted after that. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.